We're joined now by Babatunde Olugboji, the Deputy Program Director, Human Rights Watch. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
And then for those who caught the news at 10 yesterday, they should have seen that report. Zamfara lead poisoning. Some matters there. But we'll take that report again today, now, and then we'll build on it when we return.
This is Bagega, one of numerous communities in Zamfara state where artisanal gold mines flourish. The high levels of lead present in the earth and the crude mining methods employed here have exposed children to the lead poisoning epidemic through lead dust and toxic lead in contaminated water and food.
That children should have no amount of lead in their blood. Any trace amount of lead in the blood can cause some effect on intellectual and physical development. In Zamfara state, we are seeing levels of lead in children that are unprecedented.
Various tests and this documentary produced by the Human Rights Watch show that lead levels in the community can be as high as 23,000 parts per million in one home, far above the safe level of 400 parts per million. This, the group says, cause for concerns.
The first step is implementing safer mining practices. This is very, very important because as long as people continue to mine in this way, their villages will be recontaminated and their children will be re-exposed. To do this initial phase, which is the implementation of safer mining practices, the environmental cleanup of the villages affected, and the testing and treating of these children is around $4 million US. This needs to happen immediately. It needs to happen before the next rainy season. If remediation begins but is not completed, the rainy season will actually make the entire situation much worse.
The common symptoms of lead poisoning are extreme convulsion and impaired growth in children, and in adults, infertility and miscarriage.
Convulsing is the main symptom that is showing parents that their children are very ill, but in children who are still heavily affected but are not affected to that level, the symptoms are harder to see. But what you see as they develop and get older is that they are not developing along with children who have not been affected. Their cognitive, biological development is impaired.
I've told us they've made representation to the presidency. I mean, what they said is that they are positive that there will be funds, there will be action, there will be movement. But it's difficult to tell that to the people of Zamfara who are losing their children, who are losing their health, whose environment is being contaminated.
In the meantime, government's intervention is needed urgently so that the source of prosperity for these ones would not continue to be the source of death. Henry Ogunjimi, Channels Television News.
Well, there you have that, setting the background for us here, as it were. So Olugboji is here with us. You actually, Human Rights Watch did what? A research on this matter?
Yes. A researcher who you saw on that clip was in that area twice. And then I went with her a couple of days ago. So we went there, we saw the miners, we saw the parents, we saw the children, we saw the women, it was a very depressing situation, a situation that could be avoided. Like you saw in that clip, over 400 children have died from lead poisoning. And this is something we are very concerned about. This is something we think the Nigerian people should be very concerned about. It is not just about Zamfara state, it is about the Nigerian nation. And we keep on saying the Nigerian government has much more than just a moral obligation to protect the right to health of a citizen. It has a legal obligation. So this is something we believe needs to be done, and it needs to be done immediately.
From what you saw while you went there, was it that they don't see anything wrong with it, or it's just their lifestyle that people take it for granted that this is actually going on and nothing much has been done about it?
Right. I mean, it's a bit of people want to make a living for themselves. They go out there, mine, and then make some money. And in the process of mining, release contaminated dust containing lead into the air. And in that situation, then their children become poisoned, the environment becomes affected, and what we are seeing now, we haven't seen it before. It is a worst case of lead poisoning in the world, according to health experts. So,
in the world,
nothing like this has ever happened. It says it's the ore in that area, in that region, has a very high content of lead. So the mining needs to be in a way that doesn't release dust into the air. If it does, people are going to be affected, and we are talking about generations even to come.
You know, quite frankly, that place is naturally dusty, so even without mining, how dangerous or safe is the environment?
I mean, we're talking about two different things now. If we're just talking about the normal dust that is released into the air, that we're not going to have concerns about that. But the miners, they go deep down into the earth, bring out the rock, the ore, and then crush it. So the process of crushing it to extract gold releases the dust, the deadly dust, toxic dust into the air. And then children are crawling on the ground. They are putting their hands in the dust and they are putting it in their mouth. You can't stop children from crawling on the ground. What we can stop is that even affecting more children. We need to be saying this needs to be cleaned up and needs to be cleaned up now. Children need to be tested, they need to be treated, and then there needs to be safer mining practices.
You know, the people who actually, we're talking about the miners now, those who live in communities where mining takes place, especially in Zamfara, do they know the dangers this particular activity portends for them?
In the past couple of weeks, past couple of months, there have been education about that. But this is just the beginning of the process. It is a long-term advocacy process. People need to be educated, and that's part of the safer mining practices we are calling for. The miners need to know that there are quite a few things they themselves could do, like not mining in their homes, not processing the ore in their homes, because they're just bringing poison even to their children.
Do they do that?
In some of the communities, they used to do it, but the report we are having now is that they are keeping the processing out of the homes now, which is a very good first step. But again, miners go to the mines, they need to leave their clothes in the mines. They need to wash themselves before coming back home. Otherwise, then they're going to be contaminating their children, and that's not right. Now, the process of testing and treating children is a very good process. But again, before that can be successful, the environment, the compounds needs to be cleaned, because if you treat someone and bring them back to the same environment, that means they can get poisoned again. So it is a whole process that needs to happen simultaneously.
How feasible, sorry, before you go on, how feasible is that? Because, you know, looking at the pictures that you have here, it seems that even their houses, the mud houses, are built out of mud that also contain lead.
Yes, that's correct. But again, the scientists, they have a way of getting that cleaned. It's a process called remediation, removing the top layer of soil and then replacing it with a fresh soil. That needs to be done. In one particular village we went to, there are hundreds of houses, hundreds of compounds that needs to be cleaned. In one particular compound, they lost 10 children even to date in a single compound, and the compound is so contaminated that it needs to be cleaned up and done immediately. But the process is very slow. Cash is not coming in from the federal government. The Zamfara state government is showing some zeal even to do this, but they haven't got the personnel, they haven't got the resources, they haven't got the expertise. They need the might and the support of the federal government.
Before we really talk about the dangers and those it affects, because now you talked about children and women, and in some of your reports we've seen that it can actually cause some miscarriages in women. Have you been talking with the Minister of Environment, since you said that the Zamfara state government is showing some kind of zeal towards helping reverse this whole situation? What is the Minister of Environment saying?
The Minister of Environment, we met them in Abuja. We met the Minister of Mines and Steel. We've been talking to the Federal Minister of Health too. Everybody recognizes that this is a problem. But the big concern we are having now, yesterday, there was a statement released by the Minister of Mines and Steel talking about the illegality of mining in Zamfara State. We think that is not the way to go. And the government is saying they will ask these miners to register and form cooperatives so that they can support them with grants. But now the government is saying it's an illegality. You cannot stop people from mining. it's something they need to do to make a living. What we need to do to support them, what the government needs to do, is to make sure that they don't pay with their lives even for making a living for themselves. It is not about illegality. It is about supporting the miners to mine in a way that makes sense and that doesn't despoil the environment.
Sorry, Chamberlain, you know, in all of this, we haven't said anything about the miners who predominantly are males. Is it that they are immune from all of this poisoning? Because if you talk about children, and you say, and women, we haven't said anything about the men. But they also get poisoned?
That's correct. I think we're just scratching the surface as it is. Mostly we talked about children who are under 5 who are dying because of their body that is not fully developed. The high content of lead in the blood is killing even the children. But we haven't even begun to talk about effects on the adults, effects on the mothers, effects even on the fathers. One critical thing that we witnessed when we went to that area a couple of days ago, there was an expert, a health expert, who told us that we might be having even a situation that is similar to HIV/AIDS now, where a 2-day-old child was born and started having convulsions, the symptoms of lead poisoning, which means being passed on even by the mother. And we haven't even talked about livestock. The goats are there eating, the dogs are all around the place. We haven't talked about the effect even on the soil, on farming, on crops. So this is something huge. This is something that needs to be done. We're just sort of scratching the surface and talking about the effects even on little children. But even generations to come, this might affect them. So we have a crisis on our hands.
What kind of symptoms are there for this?
Right. There will be convulsions. Sometimes children go into coma. They are sick, they are weak, and they are dying. The situation there is that lead normally is not doesn't cause death normally, but the high content of lead, even in the ore in Zamfara State, makes it a dangerous mix.
Wow. Trying to go back to the response of the agencies that you've tried to contact, the ministries and agencies. Is it only the Ministry of Mines and Steel that has released any statement so far?
We saw that statement yesterday night that the Minister of Mines and Steel has released, which was a bit of a surprise to us because we met the minister a couple of days ago. The minister said they recognize that this is a serious problem. They don't have money to fix it, but the minister said it's written to the president recommending that money needs to be released. And we got it even on good authority in Zamfara State that an amount has been recommended to the Ecological Fund to be released for this. So we're a bit surprised now that the government is not so happy on the issue of illegality, that these people are illegal, they're the one causing the problem, they should be mining, we want to shut down the mines. We think that's not the way to go.
You haven't heard anything from the Ministry of Health or from the Ministry of Environment? I mean, aside the possibility that funds could be released from the Ecological Fund, you haven't heard anything else?
No, I mean, they do recognize that this is a problem, but we are not seeing any real movement in terms of, look, this is a time scale where when this money will be released. I mean, the concerning thing for us also is that we are going to get to the rainy season in June, and the experts who are cleaning up say if they get the money, if they get the resources, if they get the support, if everything is in place, they can do this between now and June. When the rain comes, that means we're going to have to wait for another cycle. So we are talking about children continuing to be dying, the environment continuing to be despoiled.
Why are the rains important?
The rain can't, because the process of cleaning up, the process called remediation, removing the topsoil and replacing it with the fresh soil, the rain comes, it washes the soil away, it takes it to some other parts of the villages, and then the job becomes even more complicated.
And you say this is in phases, the cleanup?
Yes. What the Zamfara State government says is that we spoke to the Commissioner of Environment, who appears very, very active in the process of ensuring that this is sorted. He said it's going to be in phases. The way they are talking about it is walking from a particular point and then walking out in a sort of concentric circles, so that at the end of the day they will clean out the villages. But there was one particular village, one particular compound we went to, recognized as one of the most affected compounds in the village called Bagega. Very, very contaminated. They're still waiting for that compound to be cleaned up. And we saw women there processing groundnut on the ground that is contaminated. And we asked them, don't you know how this will affect you? They said, this is how we've been processing that groundnut. There's nothing we can do. We just pray to God that it doesn't affect our children.
And to say this is worse than the cases we've seen in China, Iran, India, really should concern everybody.
According to experts, this is the worst case of lead poisoning anywhere else. It has nothing like this.
You also did something about Human Rights Watch, about the police. You did some research work on that. What's your finding this time?
The police is, the way we work in Human Rights Watch, there's another team who are working on that. So I will not be on good authority to comment even about that. I know a little bit about the report, but the researcher is the one who will probably be able to talk in depth about it.
What about the previous report that you released in August 2010? Has anything been done on that?
On the police?
Yes, there was a report you released in August 2010 titled, I'm trying to get the title now, Everyone's in the Game, Corruption and Human Rights Abuses by the Nigerian Police Force.
Yeah, there's, I think everybody recognizes the issue of corruption in the Nigerian police, and I think everybody is hoping and wishing that something be done about it. But how far the government has done in resolving that, we haven't really seen much in terms of that. But the Nigerian people will know when there are changes in Nigerian police in terms of corruption, because it's something that you can see if it happens. But from all we can see, corruption is probably still going on there.
Okay, perhaps before you go, maybe you tell us, now that we're talking about funds, talking about remediation and trying to do some kind of cleanup, just the way they talked about taking almost forever to clean up the oil spill in the Niger Delta. Now, this particular cleanup, we'll talk about how long is it going to take when we have the funds available?
Right. The experts are saying if we have the funds available, if all the plans are in place, if we start today, then there's a huge possibility that we can get this sorted before the rain comes. So it's critical that the federal government releases the money, and beyond that also it is critical that accountability mechanisms are put in place. So the money being released for the cleanup, the money being released for education, the money being released for awareness raising will go to where it was designed to go.
Because the way it is now, looks like almost 3 ministries are involved: the Ministry of Health, the Mines and Steel,
Environment.
Environment. Now, for the Health Ministry, away from statements, have they been doing anything with regards to taking care of those affected by this poisoning?
I mean, the Zamfara state government says there have been representations, there have been visits, there has been discussions, but in terms of reality, it's going to be very difficult to tell mothers who are losing their children in Zamfara that people are talking in Abuja and Gusau while nothing has been done for their children. They will look at it from the perspective of my child is dying, my child is sick, my compound is affected, and then it needs to be sorted. Because again, it is the obligation of the Nigerian government to protect the rights of its citizens. 3 main things we are asking the government to do: safer mining practices in terms of education, awareness raising, treating and testing the children, and then cleaning up the environment, and everything works together. So the question of illegality of the miners, I don't think it comes in at this point. It is about cleaning up the environment, testing and treating the children, and ensuring safer mining.
Well, there are different perspectives on that, but the point is they just need to do something about it, basically.
Yeah, there needs to be a movement, but it needs to be sequenced, it needs to be done systematically, it needs to be done in a way that works.
All right, if I were visiting the area, what do I need to be worried or concerned about so as not to perhaps be endangered?
Yeah, if you're visiting the area, I mean, with your very fine suit and very powerful tie.
I'll be wearing it there,
it's I mean, you probably don't need to worry about anything, because we went there, we carried the children, we hugged the miners. It's nothing. It's not as if you go there.
So there's a level of exposure.
There's a level of exposure. People walk in the mines. They go down in the shaft, hundreds of meters deep. They walk there, and many of them, they even sleep in the mines, basically. And they come back home with dust even all over them, and they hug their children, and they cook, and they eat, and the children crawl on the floor, on the ground, putting dirt in their mouth, and then they are affected.
Another quick one before you leave. You just talked about cooking. The water is also affected?
Yes. I mean, the water...
And it can't be cleaned?
The water is affected, but there are ways the experts will look at how to clean that and ensure that it doesn't affect people down the line. But again, it is about ensuring that the generation of people in Zamfara State is not even put at risk at this time.